Okay, in this tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to create a function that calculates the area of a rectangle. We're going to be using the keyword return as well in this tutorial. So finally, we're going to actually create a function that has some sort of real world application, calculating the area of a rectangle. That could actually be useful. So we're going to create a function that does that. So we've that to look forward to in this tutorial. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the function keyword, and our function is going to be called calculate area. We're going to have our parentheses, and we're going to have two parameters. Now, the area of a rectangle is simply width times height, so they will be our parameter names. Then what we're going to do is when we call or invoke the function and we pass the data in to our function, the data will obviously be passed in as arguments. We're going to do our calculation, just return it, and then we'll log that out to the console. We're obviously going to, when we call or invoke the function, store the result in a variable. So let's get started. I'm just going to say function. So we've seen this before many times. We use the function keyword to create a function. Now we have our function name. I'm going to say calculate area. Then we're going to have our parentheses and our curly braces. Now we know we have to pass in two pieces of data to this function as arguments, the width and the height. So we'll say width, that will be one parameter, and height will be the next parameter. Then what we can do is we can say let result, the result of the operation, be equal to width times height. So we're just getting reference to the parameters there. So whatever is passed in as arguments to the function, we have to make a reference to them. So the first piece of data passed in will be called width, and the second will be called height. So we're just multiplying those together. And then what we can do is just return the results. Awesome. And we saw in the last tutorial that any code written under the return keyword will be unreachable code. So that is our function. So now that we have defined our function, so we have defined a function that calculates the area of a rectangle, right? Now that we've done that, what we need to do is we need to call or invoke the function and pass in the data to it. So what we can do is we can just say calculate area. We're going to call or invoke the function, and we'll just say the rectangle has a width of, let's say, 120 and a height of, let's say, 45. Now, what we can do is we can store the result of that in results. So we can say let rectangle area be equal to whatever the result is, and then we'll just log out to the console. The area of the rectangle is rectangle area. So I'll just talk you through this before we have a look at the console. I've used the function keyword, okay, because we know we need to create a function. I've called our function calculate area. Please note the use of camel case. The A is a capital. Then we have our opening parentheses and our closing parentheses, because we know with function syntax we do need to have parentheses. We have our first parameter defined here and our second parameter. Then we have the opening curly brace and the closing curly brace. And inside of the function, what we do is we say let result be equal to width times height. We store that in the result variable, and then we just return results. So now here what we're saying is we're saying we're creating a variable called rectangle area, and we're assigning that the value of whatever this calculation is. So when we say calculate area, we're calling or invoking the function here. We're passing in 120 as an argument received by the function as the width parameter here. Passed in as an argument, received as an argument, but you refer to it here as a parameter. And 45 is being passed in as an argument here. It's being passed in to the function. It's received here by the function, the 45, but we get a reference to it as height. So width times height, 120 times 45, is stored in the result variable. We return it, and then that is then stored in rectangle area, the variable. And then we just log out to the console. The area of the rectangle is rectangle area. So if I save and refresh, we get the area of the rectangle is 5,400. And if you wanted to make this more concise, you could do all of this in one line. So there's no need to do the calculation, restore it in a results variable and return the results variable. What we can do essentially is just delete that and delete that and just put the return keyword up there. Okay, so now what we're doing is, instead of multiplying width by height, storing it in a variable saying let result be equal to, and then return results, we're just returning that directly, okay? Returning the outcome of the calculation. And that will still work. So if I save and refresh, we get no errors. And if I was to, let's say, change the calculations, maybe pass in 140 as the width and 45 as the height, this should still work for us. So now we get the area of the rectangle is 6,300. Okay, awesome. Congratulations. We've now created a really cool function that has a real world application. We've created a function that calculates the area of a rectangle. So that was awesome. I'll see you in the next one.